It's 4:20 somewhere, and right now that somewhere is right here. So hello and welcome to the Cannabis Show. I'm producer Vince, and here's your host, Ricardo Baca.
Vince, one more time. What time is it, Vince?
It's 4:20 somewhere, Ricardo.
And right now, I think it's about 4:20 California time. I believe so. But anyway, thank you for watching and listening today. And welcome to the Cannabist Show, where we talk about all things weed.
All things.
And that is the serious marijuana news and the not so serious stuff as well. In fact, if you pop onto our website right now, that is thecannabist.co, you will see stories about how this holiday season might be a good time to tell your parents about your relationship with cannabis.
It's easier if they already know.
About Denver's 15th pesticide-based marijuana recall in 15 weeks.
I'm out of jokes to make about this.
And about the great state of Delaware, which is now home to the nation's newest decriminalization law.
And Pittsburgh on Monday morning.
And what other news site is covering all of that? Of course, producer Vince is here in the studio with me today. Dude, how you been?
You know, I've been pretty good, Ricardo. And speaking of Pittsburgh, that's where I got to spend Sunday living one of my lifelong dreams, shooting on the Pittsburgh Steelers sidelines for the Post, you know. But it was still Broncos, Steelers, two of my teams. It couldn't have possibly gone wrong. How are you doing, Ricardo?
I know, it's like Steelers win, which they did. Good news. Broncos win. Good news. I personally was semi-broken-hearted on Sunday. That was a devastating game, especially after the Broncos. Such a great first half, and then in classic Broncos style, completely fall apart. But Vince, it is that time of the week, and you know of which I speak. It is time for the Week in Weed. You ready for this?
The only thing that doesn't make me ready is the lack of the crowd this week, man. Let's do the
I
Week in
know,
Weed.
Cannabist Show Live last week was so much fun. We're going to do it again, absolutely. This Week in Weed starts in Australia, where one state government has launched a marijuana education campaign aimed at adolescents that is turning heads. Now, New South Wales, which is home to the beautiful city of Sydney, Australia, has created commercials centered around a character known as Stoner Sloth.
Stoner Sloth.
Yes, it is a giant sloth who is also a stoner and who is ineffective at everything he or she tries.
And apparently that includes names. Stoner Sloth. It couldn't even be Steve the Stoner Sloth. I mean, I love sloths, but I'm not sure if I love Steve. All of these Stoner Sloth videos end with the tagline, quote, "You're worse on weed." No, really, they do. Here, take a look at one of these commercials.
Okay, time's up. Pens down. Delilah. Pens down, Delilah.
Stoner Sloth.
Now, when this sloth first emerged in these totally surreal videos, many viewers wondered if the campaign was legitimate or not. You know, did a government really think that this was going to steer Aussie youths away from using marijuana? Or were these videos the creation of, a renegade creative team making fun of the ways governments have tackled these kinds of education campaigns?
But, Ricardo, a quick Who Is search showed the world that this sloth is, in fact, the creation of the Australian government. And frankly, I'm surprised and a little disappointed they didn't use a koala or kangaroo or a dingo.
A dingo.
A
oh
dingo.
Man, think of the possibilities. Elsewhere in the Week in Weed events, an important new federal survey was released in the last week, showing that there was no change in adolescent monthly marijuana use in nearly every U.S. state in 2014. Now, the survey came from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, federal organization. It looked at adolescent use in 2014. That's important because that is when recreational cannabis sales first started in the U.S., Colorado and Washington.
Yes, but the data is a bit tricky because suddenly Colorado is rated #1 in monthly teen use, whereas we used to be the #3 spot in the country.
I know, and how did we jump in the ranking when our own teen use numbers didn't change year over year?
How?
Here's how it went down, Vince. So Colorado's teen use numbers edged up in 2014, but not enough to be considered statistically significant. In other words, there was no change in Colorado's teen use numbers because of the sampling variance. But as our numbers edged slightly up, former #1 state for teen use, Rhode Island, saw a statistically significant decrease in the number of adolescents using cannabis.
So over on the East Coast in Rhode Island, teens are using less marijuana, and because of that, here in Colorado, the unchanged numbers have left our state at the top of the altered ranking.
Exactly. Yeah. And right now, anti-legalization groups, including Project SAM, are using Colorado's, quote, dubious ranking to imply that legalization leads to increased teen use. But we spoke with Colorado's top doctor this week, and Larry Wolk, who directs the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment, he told me, quote, Colorado was within the range of being #1 even prior to legalization. We've always had a high use rate among youths and adults. It's something we've had to contend with, whether or not marijuana is illegal. So that's not news. It's easy to get misled by numbers if you don't understand what's behind those numbers, end quote.
So he's saying that, you know, the state that surrounds the Mile High cities always had a problem with being mile high. But elsewhere in the week in weed, there was also a whole lot of action on Nebraska and Oklahoma's proposed Supreme Court lawsuit against Colorado's legal marijuana laws this week, too.
So much movement. And these stories are crazy because sometimes we go months without hearing about them. But all of this current batch of news started when President Obama's administration sided with Colorado in this proposed lawsuit. The Obama administration recommended that the nation's highest court not hear Nebraska and Oklahoma's complaint, and that was a big move, and it was likely a big boost for Colorado, even though Colorado Attorney General Cynthia Kaufman seemed unimpressed with the administration's brief, saying that she hoped to see a, quote, more definitive statement of the federal government's marijuana policy. And now Oklahoma's Attorney General Scott Pruitt has said that he plans to continue to press SCOTUS to hear his state's case, and that written arguments will be filed in January.
In January, so it's starting to develop a little bit faster now, and I'm a little happy to see it go forward if it does, because we're starting to see presidential administrations, you know, put out literature on marijuana and on cannabis, and I want to see more of that, just like Cynthia Kaufman, Colorado's Attorney General.
You're certainly not alone, but they haven't given us clear guidance on what they expect and what they want. But as soon as they start doing that, of course, we will be on it at the Cannabist. Now, Vince, my first guest this week is making her second appearance on the show. She's the president of the Cannabis Global Initiative, and she's also the co-owner of Simply Pure, a new marijuana shop in Denver's Highland neighborhood. It's my pleasure to welcome Wanda James to the Cannabist Show. How's it going, Wanda?
It's going great at 420.
All right, yeah, 420. Hey,
How are you?
It's always 420
It's
in your world,
always
Wanda.
420 in my world. I love 420.
Wanda, we got some real talk. I talked to you on the phone a couple weeks ago, and
Yes.
you and your husband Scott have said that
Yes.
you're the only African Americans
Yes.
who own a marijuana shop in Colorado.
Yep.
So, as we consider the surreal weight of that fact, tell me, one, is that really true? And two, how is that even possible?
Yep. No, it is not true. As a matter of fact,
It's not true.
No,
Okay.
it's not. Well, it wasn't an untruth that we put out there, but we had the great pleasure to meet another African American dispensary owner yesterday. As a matter of fact.
Yesterday, let's hear
Yes.
all about it.
Wonderful person, Kiri Humphreys, who owns Frosted Leaf here in Colorado.
Sure. Frosted Leaf has multiple locations,
They have multiple
right?
locations, but what I found really interesting about that is the fact that the state keeps well, they have data. We check a box so they know who we are, but they don't let any of that information out from a marketing standpoint or where you're at. And as you know, you can't fix things or talk about things if we don't have proper tracking for it. And that's been one of the hardest things in the cannabis industry, is the fact that we have no data on who owns what. So it's always a media organization that will do, a quick look at things. To try to find out who owns stuff, but it is almost impossible to see how many women owners we have, how many African American owners we have.
You're
And so
dead
it's
right. And I will give you a little bit of a hint, and that's in the next week or two, we have an interesting story coming up on some of this data, but not necessarily of ownership, because you're right. This is information that the Marijuana Enforcement Division keeps very close to the vest, and it's information that we've requested and had a hard time able to see. But that last part of the question, even if it is you and your husband Scott and the
And
Frosted
another
Leaf folks, even if it's 5, how is this even possible as we're approaching 2016?
Well, and that's the other, the bad side to it, because when you look at, they can definitely give us the stats on how many African Americans were arrested for weed, and cannabis possession. So the fact that we keep it on one side, not on the other side, is really damning, and we keep it on the side that makes people of color look bad. We can put stats out there all day of how many people have been arrested and use marijuana, but yet we have no idea of how many people are actually being responsible business owners and bringing really good things to the industry.
Right.
So we need to start tracking that.
Well, speaking of bringing good things to the industry, I know you're very proud of your new shop. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Simply Pure.
Thank you.
And in a way, I gather from our conversations that this is kind of a continuation of at least the spirit of your former edibles company, right? Is that right?
It is. So, Simply Pure started in 2010 when we opened our doors.
Then as an edible
company,
right? Okay.
right? We were one of the first out there to do a commercial kitchen. We had a 10,000 square foot grow. We actually cooked with real bud. And it's so funny when you talk about back in the day, 5 years ago.
In addition to walking uphill both ways
exactly.
to your MIP.
Exactly, in the snow. And my husband, Scott Dura, who is an amazing chef, took a lot of pride in putting together real chefs, real kitchen, real food. We didn't do brownies, we did, marinara sauce and mango salsa. But our whole claim to fame was Simply Pure. We wanted to bring simple purity of the plant to people who want to enjoy it. No pesticides, we used all bubble hash at the time. So the world has definitely changed a lot since then, but it was always focused on quality and all of the good stuff. So fast forward 5 years to, Simply Pure Dispensary, the same basic feel is in place. Quality, bringing good things, and we want to partner with all the businesses out there that, are looking at doing this the right way.
Well, I promise I will stop by in the next couple weeks.
Come on down.
I haven't been by yet.
Come
I have
on
to check it
down.
out.
You gotta come see us.
I wasn't in this position back in the day, so I still hadn't tried your guys' edible line. Maybe those edibles will be coming back
The
at some point.
edibles will definitely be coming back. That along with, we've been talking about it for a while now, but the cooking school is also right around the corner as well too, because we really want to show people, how to make your own edibles, how to dose properly, and have things that you enjoy, because you can infuse anything now, so. And
dosing properly is important, because one of the most perennially popular posts on the Cannabist is, we just came up with a very basic calculator. How do you equate the milligrams in your future can of butter and can of oil?
Exactly.
And that's ultimately the only way we can ingest, with any amount of safety and knowledge. So, but the cooking school, are you guys ready to talk about this? Or
we're close. We've got the classes laid out, we've got the chefs picked out, we've got a couple of locations that we're looking at right now, so we're going to start with an interesting space before we get our own space built, but we're real excited about what's happening with it. We think it's going to be a really good thing.
Well, we want the exclusive on this story when you guys are ready to launch the announce where it's going to be, how it's going to be. So please give me a call. Wanda, I also want you to give the Wanda James report card to this industry, because here you are, a woman, a black woman in this industry making things happen. And many have talked about how this new industry provides an opportunity, because it's brand new, it's risen from nothing. It provides an opportunity for women and ethnic minorities to be a part of it, to own businesses, to have management roles. So if you are giving existing legal weed industry a report card, let's say, for its inclusion of women and its inclusion of ethnic minorities, what would these grades be as we approach this dawn of 2016?
And that's a harder question to kind of go out and then just say, oh, we're doing great with women and minorities, because we're not. It's predominantly white male driven. However, I don't believe that that is necessarily the fault of those in the industry. I have yet to meet anybody in this industry that has had any issue or has treated me or my husband poorly because of being the only blacks or women in this industry. I don't have those types of issues. However, when you look at the industry as a whole and the way that rules are written, and even the way that some of the bigger, I shouldn't say some of the bigger, but some dispensaries want to make sure that they keep competition out, what that effectively does is it does stop people who don't have the same types of access to cash that white Americans may have. They may be able to go to their parents and get money because, as you know, with capital in this industry, we can't go to a bank.
Sure.
So you have to be able to find ways of funding your business either through family relationships, business relationships. I mean, you've got to try to figure all that out, which is really difficult, and especially the kind of money you need to open a dispensary these days or an edible company. It's very difficult to find that cash. Then on top of it, almost every state has laws based on who can own dispensaries based on arrest records.
Sure, previous criminal history.
Previous criminal history. And what have we seen with black and brown people in America? We get arrested at 85% more than the average white person out there will get arrested, even though we all seem to smoke at the same amount. So when you have those kind of racial disparities of who's getting arrested and who doesn't have a family lawyer to get them out of the simple possession case, you may just be writing yourself out of the ability to own a business. So the amount of blacks and Latinos that can own businesses is dramatically diminished. So that makes it much tougher for people to get in. And then you also look at a lot of how we as black folks look at the cannabis business. And unfortunately, our churches and a lot of our politicians don't feel positive. But that's changing because I think over the years now we're starting to see that there is real business happening here, and it's time to get involved. But slowly
and you see
but
that
surely.
change happening within the African American community?
I do. A couple weeks ago, I was invited to speak in Los Angeles to a group of legislators that want to understand how to, bring this to their cities, states, municipalities. So slowly but surely, it's changing, but definitely slowly. So there's a number of things that definitely need to happen to build up minority ownership in the cannabis industry because it really is lacking right now.
Well, let's get to those grades then. For women and for ethnic minorities, what's the somewhat arbitrary grades that you would give the cannabis industry at this point?
I would give it a D for minority ownership.
A D?
Yeah, because we're so far off the mark. We have so much to do to make that right. Women, on the other hand, I would give us a C+. I mean, because even here in Colorado, I mean, we're seeing what we think is probably about 23 to 25% ownership, female ownership. But once again, that's just another organization that looked at weed maps and tried to figure out who owned what, because we don't have those numbers.
Very inexact.
It's exactly because we don't have those numbers. But it is an industry though where I do see women gaining in power because women are hard to argue with when it comes to the whole legalization piece. If I'm a mom and I'm standing in front of you with a sick child, what are you going to tell me? I'm a stoner and that's why I'm fighting because I have a sick child.
Right.
Or if I am a woman and I happen to be a stiletto stoner and I enjoy cannabis, it's not for some reason as daunting as people want to argue against young men who smoke. So I think that women are the real power to changing how people view this industry, and I think we're taking our rightful spaces, and especially with Women Grow and people like Jane West that are just changing the whole image behind where we're at. So women, I would give a little bit higher grade. Still have a long way to go.
Yeah,
but
sure.
I would give us a little bit of a higher grade for women.
Well, I can't wait for 10 years down the line so we can
It'll be A
see
all the
how
way
all
then.
this shakes out. Oh, how great a world would
I
it
know.
be if it
I
was an
think
A?
so.
Well,
I think so.
we'll check in with you.
I think so.
Wanda, thanks for joining us. We're going to
Thanks,
talk to you
Ricardo.
some more very shortly.
Okay.
But before we introduce our next guest, I'm going to throw to our very own instructor of indica. And of course, that's Professor Pat for this week's entry in the new Cannabis lexicon.
Carb cap, a specially crafted instrument which fits over a domeless nail. The purpose of a carb cap is to allow a full hit while keeping the nail at a lower temperature, which makes for a more flavorful dab. Quick, give me the carb cap. I'm literally hemorrhaging terps over here.
All right. Pat, thank you for that. Professor Pat, everyone. He was a big hit at the Cannabist Show live last week. If you missed his segment, go back and watch it now. Absolutely classic. So on to our next guest, who is, he also owns a legal marijuana shop in Colorado, or two. You might know him from the MSNBC show Pot Barons, or you might have purchased some flower or edibles from him at a Medicine Man shop in Denver or Aurora. So please help me in welcoming Andy Williams to the Cannabist Show.
Thank
Hey,
you.
dude. Hey.
Hi.
Good to see you, brother.
So good to see you.
Yeah, you as well. Thanks so much for coming out. This
Thanks
is your
for
first
having me.
time on the show.
I hope the first of many.
Oh yeah, we'll have you back.
Yes.
It would be
Good to see
crazy
you.
not to.
Yeah.
Andy, we're going to start with a photo, okay? And you might recognize this
All right.
photo.
I'm ready.
Producers just pulled it up on the screen. Andy, this photo is of musician John Mayer, and he is totally zenned out, completely surrounded by weed at his feet level, his waist level, his face level. Andy, you're quite familiar with this cannabis grow, right? In fact, tell us,
Yes,
why
I
was
am.
John Mayer hanging out in your marijuana grow?
This was exciting. I didn't even know actually that he was coming that day because I was excited about the Grateful Dead coming.
Sure.
And so
Dead and Co.
yeah, and so the Grateful Dead were in town, and so about a half a year ago, Mickey Hart's publicist called us up and said, "Hey, Mickey Hart's very interested in what you're doing, and he believes he has some synergies with what you're working on, and he wants to talk about that with you. Would you like to see Mickey Hart, the drummer for the Grateful Dead?"
And you're like, I guess.
Yeah,
Sure.
let me check my calendar. And so we said, sure. So we spent a day with Mickey Hart and just had a blast. And he talked about the work he's doing. He's a firm believer in the healing power of music and drums.
Sure.
And he's working with the Smithsonian on some great projects that
cool.
if anybody's interested, they can look up, and just is doing a great job. And he believes that there's some synergies in the cannabis industry as well. So that was our opening meeting with Mickey Hart, and then so we've had this relationship now for the half a year and been talking over time. And he said, "Hey, I'm coming in concert, and we want to host Medicine Man and the Williams family at the show. And by the way, can we come by and I want to
jeez.
bring the whole band and come see your shop." Like, well, oh, that's wonderful. Come on by. And so
And I love it. And
Yeah.
at this point, you're just thinking Dead and Co. And
That's
you
right.
might not have known that John Mayer was touring with them as lead guitarist.
exactly right. And so here they are. They show up, and they really geeked out. John Mayer was certainly geeked out and just had a blast. They were just kids in a candy store back there, and really found their Zen moment. And John Mayer really connected with Pete.
Your brother.
Yes, my brother Pete.
Yeah, of
and
course.
Pete said, "Hey, you got to come to my house. I have a sword fighting room. We can sword fight."
Wait a minute.
You have a sword fighting room?
Exactly.
That's
That's my
great.
reaction to
He
that.
does, he does.
Pete Williams
He's
has
got-
a sword?
He does, yeah.
You
Like
say
a
this so
jousting?
nonchalantly,
Yeah.
like
No.
it's normal.
No, Pete
I
doesn't
know,
have. Well,
right?
that's normal for Pete. He doesn't have a wife, so nobody to keep him in line. And so he made his living room a sword fighting room, and anybody can go. He has gear of all sizes and swords all over the place. Wooden swords and stuff.
Like, not fencing. You're talking legit
He has both.
full-on swords.
He has fencing and these wooden swords, and they whack the crap out of each other.
This is amazing.
Yeah, it's
This is
fun.
almost as good as your John Mayer
No, it's
story.
fun, yeah. Well, John Mayer geeked out on that too.
Sure.
Yeah, so funny. And they said, "Yeah, then we'll smoke some of my private stock Golden Goat, and we'll write songs together." And
sure.
so they hit it off. They had a good time.
That's fantastic. The
Yeah.
picture cracked me up. A friend sent it to me, and I'm like, Andy didn't tell me that he had these guys coming by, so we did a story on it. Everybody can find it on the Cannabis. Andy, this is your first time on the show, but you and I go way back. Catch us up on the business. How are things going over at Medicine Man, and also Pot Barons? Is
Oh,
there going to
boy.
be a second season or something affiliated with the show?
Okay, let me catch you up real
right.
fast. So Medicine Man has 2 stores here in Colorado, one in Denver, one in Aurora.
Sure.
We're looking for a 3rd location. I'm really hoping it's going to be Commerce City.
Oh, cool. Yeah,
I'm
sure.
excited about that. We're also looking to expand around the country. Oregon's our target right now, and more on that as it develops.
Nice. So have you applied for any licenses yet? Or?
Well, I have a partner that has a small holding in medicine, not a holding, but he's a partner in the non-marijuana activity that Medicine Man has, and he owns a few stores, a part of a few stores in Oregon, and he wants to bring Medicine Man in to help bring those up to Medicine Man standards.
Oh, excellent.
So I'm
Okay.
excited about that.
That is exciting.
And then we also have our consulting company called Medicine Man Technologies.
Yeah, and you guys were doing really well with that. I know some consulting companies that are attached to marijuana shops in Colorado are actually now starting to outperform the marijuana shops that they were attached to. So is that the case with your consulting company? Can you say?
Funny you should say that. I believe in a year, Medicine Man Technologies will be bigger than Medicine Man.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
we are now in 14 states. We have 28 active clients, and I'm taking one for the team. I need to work in Hawaii most of January.
Oh, man,
it's
rough.
tough. And,
I'm sorry to hear that,
Yeah,
dude.
yeah. And we have a couple really exciting new product lines that are going to be coming out that I am not at liberty to discuss, but will really drive increased revenue with the company. And as I got in my car on the way over here, I got news that we just cleared FINRA in our attempt to go public with that company.
And now, which company is this? Medicine Man
This
Technologies?
is Medicine Man Technologies.
Okay.
And so we will be trading publicly, I believe, in January on the OTC markets.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
OTC market, that's the pink sheets, right? So that's not like, that's not NASDAQ, that's not the big New York Stock Exchange.
That's right. Someday.
Yeah, I have
Someday
no
on that.
doubts.
But we are PCOB compliant, fully reporting company, and I'm really excited about it.
Oh, congratulations on
Thank
that.
you.
That's breaking
Yeah,
news
that
here
is
on
good.
the
It is
Cannabis
breaking
Show.
news.
And what about Pot Barons? Any updates with that? I know the first season aired on MSNBC last year, but haven't heard anything about it. But
So MSNBC did not pick it up, but the good news is they released the rights to the director, Gary Cohen,
okay.
of Triple Threat Media, and he has 4 episodes that haven't been aired yet. And so all of the episodes, including the 4, will be released at some point this year. I'm not sure where he plans on releasing it yet, but I think it'll probably be web-based. And then he also plans on doing more content with Medicine Man. And I think it's going to be a closer look at the personalities and the inner workings of the dispensary and the grow. Not necessarily so focused on me, but certainly I would be in it and the family would be in it, but really focusing on some of the other personalities there as well.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Jeez, man.
That'd be,
It
fun.
makes sense to focus on the personalities because now, legal weed is old enough that we're starting to see narrative, scripted series. Last week we were talking about Margaret Cho over at Amazon, and we still have Adam Scott over at NBC doing these development deals with scripted TV shows set inside dispensaries. In the case of the NBC show, set inside a Colorado dispensary.
In
Of
the
course,
Highlands.
it's not going to be filmed here, but I think that focus on the personalities, some of the folks who work behind these counters, the bud tenders, would have potential. Andy, my former colleague Eric Gorski, he's no longer with the Post. He's still reporting locally, but I know you know Eric really well.
I do.
There's a great scene between you and Eric in the film Rolling Papers, by the way.
Oh, that's great.
Which you'll have to see
I
when
can't wait.
it comes out in mid-February. But Eric followed you around for, maybe half a year last year, just kind of reporting on Medicine Man as it entered the recreational era. One of the things you talked about in Eric's series of stories was the idea of a potential sale. And at that time, it was April of 2014, you told Eric that the magic number required for you to consider selling your stake in the business was $11.5 million. So Andy Williams, right now, December 2015.
Yes.
Are you still looking for that
Somebody
sale?
should have taken me up on that, is what I got to say. The
Oh,
numbers,
really?
Oh, certainly. The numbers certainly increased. And I'm not really looking to get out anymore. At the time, my health was really poor. I was just starting to go through a divorce. My heart wasn't in it.
Sure,
And I was like, you know what? An exit sounds pretty good.
Absolutely.
And we have so many things going on right now, the things I've already spoken about. We have another company starting called MX, which is focused on the healing power of cannabis and really making a medicine out of it. And I'm working with some great people, pharmacists and doctors of all types and people that have been in plant extraction for generations. And the exciting stuff that we're doing, it would take a big number to get me to sell out right now. And then I would still want to work for whoever bought me.
Sure,
Because
okay.
it's just too much fun.
So what might that number be now, if that number existed?
Oh, boy.
Or does the number
I don't
simply
know.
just not?
I don't
Really
It's a
putting you
big
on the
number.
spot
You're putting
here,
me on
man.
the side. I mean, the number would be...
Be careful.
Yeah, I know. 50 million, 100 million, I don't know what it would be, but it would be a lot. And it's not so much that that's what I'm worth right now, because I'm certainly not.
Sure. The Shark Tank guys might take question with your valuation right
that's
now.
That's right,
Mr.
they certainly
Williams.
would, and that's great. And that means they wouldn't put an offer, right? Because I want to stay in this.
I've been waiting for marijuana to be on Shark Tank.
They should be.
I know.
Yeah.
It
Wanda,
should be.
come on.
It should be.
Wanda,
We're
we're
ready.
bringing you back into this conversation. As we mentioned earlier, the city of Denver just this week issued its 15th pesticide-related recall of marijuana products. And that's in 15 weeks. 15 recalls, 15 weeks. So here we are. Some companies have been recalled multiple times. One company is questioning the scientific integrity of the city's test results. And more than 100,000 packages of cannabis and pot products have been recalled. So Wanda and Andy, this is my question to you. We're starting with you, Wanda. What do you make of this? What's going on?
So look, we've gone from selling weed illegally to, well, just illegally, to selling it to, 150, 200,000 patients, at which time we learned about purity. And now we're selling it to anybody over the age of 21. Once you hit that realm of commercialism, everything you do then is at the safety of the public. We own a restaurant. Everything we do in that restaurant is the safety of the public. So when you're selling a Schedule I drug that the federal government hasn't said is legal yet, you owe it to your customers, to your employees, to everybody to make sure that you do everything to the best of your ability and make sure that it's clean and make sure it's safe. Now, are the testing guidelines exact, and do they have issues with tests? Yes, they do. Clearly, we do. However, these recalls, these numbers are so high and so out of place. We know that something is not right with what they're doing, clearly. And I think that needs to be what gets looked at, because to have one company, pulled out numerous times, and like you said, they're testing all of recreational cannabis right now. The test may not be perfect, but even if you compare those to other companies that are being tested and passing, then there is obviously some issue.
Right, and to be clear, though, there's not mandatory testing in place yet for
this is true.
recreational or medical, but the city of Denver is certainly following the paper trail, and it kind of started with this report that we did with Mahatma concentrates, and that's kind of filtered down, and Mahatma was the first recall, and now the 15th recall has happened. Andy, what's your take on this?
I would echo everything Wanda said there. And we have to remember, nothing was tested before things were legal. And so we are at a better place now than we ever were before.
Exactly.
And,
it's a good point
and that's
to make.
great. And I don't know anybody, my circle of friends are people in this industry, and I don't know anybody that is using any product on their plants that isn't approved on that list because of the consequences that we would face.
Yeah.
And of course, everyone wants to protect the consumer as well. And the problem is, though, there's very little on that list that we can use. And so getting good science to say what can we use to help protect our consumers from powdery mildew and other things that might be harmful will help us as well. But right now, I don't know anybody that would use anything off that list. If somebody is, we all want them closed down. We don't want them using things that will harm people. But like you said, having somebody get caught up in this multiple times, I can't imagine them doing that after the first time. So what is happening with the testing or the standards or whatever it might be, I don't know what it is, but it needs to be looked at closely.
And I think in the cases of a lot of these companies that are facing multiple recalls, this is product that's months old. This is product that was grown, last year. This is earlier this year, before some of these conversations really heated up in February, March.
And the half-life of that is really long sometimes. And some of those chemicals. So.
It has, yeah. But what we're hearing from the State Department of Ag is you cannot use these at all.
Yeah.
But it's definitely long. But I mean, I would hope that people are, and like you said, the consequences to the companies, you would want to make sure and want to go back and make sure that your products are going to pass the muster, because right now it's just not worth being on the cover of Cannabist for a negative piece against your company, because it's so hard. It's so hard to do what we do, and to add undue issues to the pot is, no pun intended, but is difficult.
I'll tell you what would be helpful. is a lab that I can go to
Yep.
and test my own product
Yep.
without having it broadcast to
Yep.
the whole world.
Yep.
So that,
and let us fix it.
Yeah, let
Right.
us do our own testing.
Yep.
Let us figure out what's
Yep.
going on here, what's going on there, without having it go directly
Yep.
to the state.
Yep.
And that's in place right now. If you are testing for pesticides with the 1 or 2 labs in the state that are doing that testing, that's not shared with anybody. If the city is doing that testing through their lab that they're using, then yeah, obviously the city is getting that information. But
Okay.
that's at least how it should be working. And if it's working in another way, are you hearing that it's working in another way?
Well, I've called facilities that if I test my own product with you, do you share that? They say yes. I have to share with the authorities.
Oh wow, that might be a story.
Maybe I'm wrong on that.
Andy Williams is just
Yeah.
full of breaking news
Yeah.
here on the Cannabis Show, everybody.
Maybe I'm wrong on that. I'll double check
Yeah, we'll
myself.
touch
but-
base tomorrow.
And that's
on
kind of
this.
the other problem
Yeah.
too, is people don't really always know, the ins and outs of the rules. I mean, the rules that we follow in this industry are I mean, big. So I don't know that everybody knows what exactly
Right.
the status quo is right now.
Well, it's certainly a developing issue, and what we're starting to see is more awareness and fewer incidents. And I think the industry really is getting in line with the state and the city's expectations. So, you guys, it is time for the quiz.
Oh, boy.
The pot quiz, Andy Williams' favorite part of the show. How this works is we're going to start with Wanda. If she gets the answer wrong, you can steal the answer.
Very good.
Vice versa, okay?
Competitive.
Wanda, she's got her game face on. And here we go. Wanda, despite its precarious name, officials at Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson recently had to discard 400 tubes of lip balm because they contained what?
Can I phone a friend?
No. What was that from? Was that Cash Cab or Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?
Who wants to be a millionaire?
Phone a friend.
I can't phone a friend. You know what? I have not heard this story, but since I like lip balm and I use a lot of lip balm, I'm going to guess that it was probably some kind of a hemp-based oil that tested higher than 0.03.
Oh, there you go, Wanda, with the on-point
That was
guess.
awesome. You didn't know that answer?
I did not know
Oh,
that.
jeez Louise.
It's
tough.
It's true that Alaska base, once they realized that the little promotional lip balm that they were handing out had hemp seed oil, they threw it away. They threw it away because that was technically against their charter, against their rules. So great guess.
There we go.
Andy,
That's tough to follow. Okay.
especially with this one.
Yeah,
this
all
one's
right, great.
tough, man.
Thank you. Thanks for picking that one.
Hey, this is producer Dane. You can take this up with him afterwards. So, what country's Miss Universe contestant this week said that medical marijuana should be legal?
Well, that should be easy if I had watched that.
Oh, come on. Are you
Yes,
telling me you didn't
I'm going
watch
to guess.
this?
I saw Steve Harvey.
Yeah. Talk about a blunder. Wow, yeah.
That was embarrassing to watch. That
Oh,
was
that
something.
was sad, yeah.
Yeah, or was it genius to get all that airtime?
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Certainly got it out there.
Yeah, and so I'm going to go with what I know is Miss Argentina.
Good guess.
All right, no.
Wrong guess.
Okay.
But yeah, why not throw it out
That's
there?
right.
Wanda for the steal.
Australia.
Oh, damn.
You are too good for me. Did you watch that?
You know, I watched the last question piece because I'm curious why women are still walking around in bathing suits. And then they ask them these questions about, marijuana and guns. But I'm like, that's perfect. Anyway.
Miss Australia. Good one. You knew that one. That was not a guess. And yeah, it's worth watching because, that YouTube clip is worth watching. I don't typically watch the Miss Universe pageant, but she made some interesting points. She talked about cannabis's power and influence over cancer. So worth a watch. Wanda, your question is up. Giving new meaning to the term Hunger Games, what actress came clean this week and said she took a bong hit before attending the Oscars?
I don't know, but since you said Hunger Games, I'd say Jennifer Lawrence.
Oh my God, she's just guessing all over these questions. Okay.
You're too good for me.
Andy, you got a chance to put some points
So
on the board right
How many
here.
questions do we have? Do I have a chance at all for a win?
You don't have a chance for a
No,
win. She's
okay.
3-0
Yeah,
right
yeah,
now.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
you're gonna avoid the goose egg
Yes,
with
I
this
am.
question.
That's
okay.
what I'm going to do.
He's throwing
So
the softball.
Andy,
Yes.
what Colorado marijuana company faced its 4th recall this week because of the presence of
geez.
potentially dangerous
I
pesticides?
don't know.
Andy, are you saying you haven't been reading the Cannabist every
I
day?
have a lot to do.
I know, you're a busy man.
I don't know. I have no clue, nor will I guess that.
All right, yeah,
Yes.
probably a smart
Yes.
choice not to guess if you don't know. Wanda, are you going to shut
Well, he
Andy
just puts
out?
me on. He just puts. See, this isn't fair. He just put me on. You know what? We'll give him a break. We won't call them out, but it's a certain candy edible maker. But we'll
Hey, I'm going to say it if you don't.
go ahead. I already won, so go ahead.
This would be the first shutout. Would this be the first shutout, Vince?
It would also be the first time all 4 were said right.
Okay. In that case, it was Eddie Pure.
It was
Okay.
Edipure.
Yeah.
With the 4th recall, we had their chief science officer on the show
Yeah.
just 2 weeks ago, and he had a lot of interesting things to say. We have a bonus question. Should we just throw a bonus question in for the hell of it?
You want to embarrass me more?
Make it
That's
a
what you wanna do.
4-point bonus question.
You really want to
so
embarrass me more?
I don't
If it's a
think
4-point bonus question, you could like win it with the one bonus
You're
question.
too nice, Wanda.
5-point
We
bonus.
can't do
too
that.
nice.
That's
You're way
cheating.
too nice, yeah.
But I don't know that either of you guys will know this. This is tough. So let's go for it. Me and Vince were talking earlier about this new survey result from the federal government. Currently, Colorado is number 1 for monthly teen use of cannabis.
Mm-hmm.
What state is number 2? Andy, you get the first
I get the
guess.
first go?
It's 1 out of 51 because this includes all 50 states and DC. So
Rhode Island.
that's a good guess. I believe they're number 3 in this year's results. So Wanda,
I got a good guess out of that.
Yeah, that was a really good guess.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So I know that Boston is number 1 for pot smoking just overall, and I think Boulder was number 2. So lots of colleges. I'm apt to say Massachusetts, but then I keep thinking California because how big it is. I'm gonna go with Massachusetts.
That's a good guess in terms of your geography, and your direction toward the presence of universities is also on point because I think the presence of university in Vermont. Is the reason for its
Vermont.
high
No, I
ranking,
did hear that.
very high ranking, in
Which is
addition
weird
to
because
Colorado.
Vermont, of all places.
I know, but our style
Did you get
writer,
anything for
Katie
that?
Shapiro, she went to, I think do they call it UVM? University of Vermont. Anyway, she went there. She said lots of pot being smoked at UVM. So, hey, I want to say thank you to our guests, Wanda James and Andy Williams. Thanks to you all for listening, for watching. Check out the podcast. Hit that subscribe button. I'm Ricardo Baca. I'm joined by producers Vince, Eric, Dane, the rest of the crew. Have a great day, everyone, and we will see you next week on the Cannabist Show.
I'm all in, I'm calling any posse you'll be raising at the end. I say it again, ain't afraid to get in. I be going for the jackpot with aces in my hand, I'm raw.